They're not protecting anyone. The only people exercising their Second Amendment rights seem to be the ones gunning down innocent people.
All right, welcome back to the channel. Just pointing out a little politics on the Second Amendment. Looks like the political mommy has it all figured out. Let's check that out.
Is the Second Amendment just for mass shooters now? Because I thought the whole point was to protect us from a tyrannical government. But funny enough, the people stockpiling weapons aren't using them to defend kids in schools or communities under fire. They're not protecting anyone. The only people exercising their Second Amendment rights seem to be the ones gunning down innocent people. And where are all these so-called good guys with guns we were promised? The ones who swore they would rise up against tyranny? Because from where I'm sitting, the government is still corrupt. Corporations still own politicians, and the only action I see is silence, or worse, excuses. So let me just get this straight. The Second Amendment warriors can't stop a mass shooter, won't stop a government that sells out the people, and refuse to support even basic reforms. So who exactly are we protecting besides their ego and their gun safe? Because if the Second Amendment isn't being used to fight tyranny, and it's not being used to keep kids alive, then maybe it's time we admit it's not protecting freedom at all. Tell me I'm wrong.
It's tyranny, not tyranny. Let's watch that again.
Is the Second Amendment
comment this time? Let's break this down.
Just for mass shooters now? Because I thought the whole point was to protect us from a tyrannical government.
Now, okay, so she starts off with saying protecting us from a tyrannical government, right? So mass shooters, tyrannical government, what do those two have in common? I'm trying to figure that out. So that's not the same thing. Mass shooters and a tyrannical government. How did she make that leap and bring those and tie those two together?
But funny enough, the people stockpiling weapons.
Stockpiling weapons. Who's stockpiling weapons? This is another leap. Stockpiling weapons. So everybody who believes in the Second Amendment, I guess, is just stockpiling weapons. I support the Second Amendment. I don't have a stockpile of weapons. I have enough to serve the purposes that I deem appropriate, but I'm not stockpiling weapons. Where does that come from?
Aren't using them to defend kids in schools or communities under fire.
Now, where's the obligation to defend kids in schools or communities under fire? For what reason? I'm trying to understand that. And that's the weird thing about it, about the Second Amendment argument. Since when did it become about defending the community in everyday goings on? Or situations that happen, like a mass shooter or something like that. What does that have to do with the Second Amendment? That's not what it was there for. In the beginning, she stated what it was there for, what it's there for, to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. Full stop. No, it's not to preserve hunting right. It's not to have protection against somebody in the mall. It's not to protect the schools. All that's great. You know, it's handy to have a weapon on you if something goes down. But that's not what it was there for. That's not what it was created for, primarily. So to try to marry those two things together seems like a workaround to try to strip a fundamental right away under a false pretense.
They're not protecting anyone. The only people exercising their Second Amendment rights seem to be the ones gunning down innocent people.
Seem to be the ones gunning down innocent people. Second Amendment right, the right to bear arms. So the only people that are bearing arms are the ones that are gunning down innocent people. In other words, everybody that owns a weapon seems to be a mass shooter. That's basically what she's saying.
And where are all these so-called good guys with guns we were promised? The ones who swore they would rise up against tyranny? Because from where
Wait a minute. Stop. The good guys with the guns. So there's supposed to be this mysterious army of good guys. The Second Amendment warriors that are just going to go around doing everything that, one, the individual should be doing for themselves. Two, that the police should be doing. There's this special 2A force that's just going to go around and take care of all of this business. That's what she seems to be suggesting. And if that doesn't happen, if there's not this army of vigilantes going around protecting everyone, then there's no need for the Second Amendment. The funniest part about that, though, is if there was an army of vigilantes going around protecting people, there would be a problem with that, too. Matter of fact, if one innocent or mentally confused or somebody with a mental condition got popped by one of these groups of vigilantes while he was actively trying to cause harm to someone else, they would say he didn't deserve that. So there's no winning with these people. It doesn't matter what side you land on.
I'm sitting, the government is still corrupt, corporations still own politicians, and the only action I see is silence, or worse, excuses. So let me just get this straight. The Second Amendment warriors can't stop a mass shooter, won't.
It's not their job to stop a mass shooter. That's not the purpose of the Second Amendment. And again, it's back about a tyrannical government, not a government that you think sells out your people, but a tyrannical government. There's a distinct difference between the two.
Stop a government that sells out the people and refuse to support even basic reforms. So who exactly are we protecting besides their ego and their gun safe? Because if the Second Amendment isn't being used to fight tyranny and it's not being used to...
There we go again with used to fight tyranny. What tyranny? What tyranny? Is it just tyranny in general, or is it a tyrannical government? Why is she trying to merge the two together?
Keep kids alive, then maybe it's time we admit it's not protecting freedom at all. Tell me I'm wrong.
It's obvious people aren't falling for it, because all you have to do is just look at the comment section. We'd be glad to protect schools. Your government has made them no-gun zones. Even though, again, it's not your obligation just because you carry a weapon to protect the schools. You're not employed. You're not a police officer. That's for your own protection, your own use. I know it might sound cold, but there's no obligation there to run around, quote unquote, protecting people. We did stop a government that sold out people. We elected Trump. Active school shooter interventions by permit holders between 2014 and 2023. Concealed handgun permit holders stopped 180 active shooting attacks in the U.S. That's an average of about 18 incidents per year where a civilian with a permit directly ended an active shooter situation. Wow. Unfortunately, it doesn't apply to gun-free zones like school because of a law-abiding citizen abiding by the rules when criminals don't. Also, our government is not tyrannical. The government in the United Kingdom is tyrannical by arresting people, freedom of speech, like social media posts mean and saying in front of a Muslim. I guarantee you if the government started bringing on this First Memory right, people would use their second. First Amendment, infringing on, I think it's just typos. The government in the United States started infringing on First Amendment rights here in the U.S., you would see an exercise of the Second Amendment rights. And it's kind of interesting the way that people make that comparison with Europe all the time, that stark contrast between the two. And then you have a lot of people in the comment section saying that the school shooters are going after schools because they're gun-free zones. They know they'll face little to no resistance. That could be true. I believe it is true in part, but I don't think that's the only reason. Sure, it looks like a soft target, but I think the sickness would, even if the target was a little more hard, it's because, like Sun Tzu said, a sane man and a madman that meet in a market, to fight in a market, they're not on equal terms, because the same person cares about what's going on around them, and the madman doesn't give a damn. They're like a bull in a china shop. They don't care what gets torn up, what gets destroyed. So therein lies the problem. It's kind of like that movie Superman. If you watch Superman, when he was fighting General Zod, I'm talking about back in the original, I think it was Superman 2. The thing about it was they were fighting, and Superman realized that everything was getting torn up, all around, and he was like, "Yeah, if we keep this up, innocent people are going to continue to get hurt because they were using the innocents as shields and using the innocent, using basically as weapons as well. And it's kind of like we see with terrorists and cowards nowadays, right? So what did he do? He flew away, and they looked at him and they called him a coward. They look at him as a coward flying away, but he was smart enough to know that you can't meet him on an even. Well, it's not an even playing field. Put it that way. When you meet them like that, because they don't care who else gets hurt. So you're following the rules, and you've got guidelines that you abide by and concerns for other people, and they don't. And they just unleash. They don't care who gets hurt, who gets shot, none of that. So it's not an even playing field. So you got to figure out a way to even that up. And the liberals tend to think that as long as their playing field is quote unquote even, so they think they can even the playing field by saying, okay, nobody has guns, right? Nobody has guns. Well, that same madman will pick up a sword. And then you will say that, swords are dangerous because people get cut. So we have a no sword zone. And then the idiot's going to be the only one in there that has a sword chopping folks up. It's kind of ridiculous, but there's really no way around it. But if you have that mentality, you'll always find some way in which that you should be protected, or you should be protected by taking away somebody else's right. This was a great response.
Is the Second Amendment just for mass shooters now? Because I thought the whole point was to protect.
I'll prove that you don't give a shit about the kids in less than 60 seconds. Out of the 47,000 total gun deaths that were recorded in 2024, what percentage was because of mass shootings? I'll ask it a little bit slower. Out of the 47,000 total recorded gun deaths in 2024, what percentage was because of mass shootings? I'm not going to give you the answer. And if you have to go look it up to comment on this video, and I'll know if you do or not, but if you have to go look it up, I know for a fact you don't give a shit about the kids. It's control is what you care about.
And that's really what it comes down to, is control. So a lot of people equate what looks like control with safety. They feel like they're more secure. And I've used this analogy before. There's a direct correlation between freedom and security. The more quote unquote secure you believe you are, the less free you're going to be. Case in point, maximum security prison. One of the most secure places on earth. You are safe. You are safe there, right? But you're not free. You're maximum free less with maximum security, right? But she tries to add a little logic to it to try to make it make sense. So check out this analogy of how she tries to compare gun ownership with insurance.
Let's treat like we treat cars. Every driver has to carry insurance. And here's the kicker. Insurance companies hate paying out, as we all know. And since this country is so focused on money, here's a potential solution. Imagine if every owner needed insurance. Suddenly, those same companies would be lobbying harder than anyone for safer laws, fewer and stricter accountability, just to protect their big, beautiful bottom line.
Well, it might sound like a great idea on the surface. First of all, who is this lady? It's funny when they take videos and all they do is sit there and point, yes, and all that stuff. She added zero value to the video other than just pointing and stuff. I guess that's why there were no comments on that video. But back to the insurance thing. It sounds great on the surface, but here's the problem. Insurance is for accidents, right? Sudden and unforeseen events that take place. And they're for a certain peril, right? You have a hurricane, you got a fire, you got this, you got that, but it's a specific peril, and it has to be unforeseen or an accident in order to be covered by a policy. And if you look at an insurance policy, they have a lot of these things called exclusions, which tell you specifically what's excluded from the policy. So let's take gun violence, for instance, right? One thing that's excluded on an insurance contract is an intentional act. So if your house is insured against fire and you intentionally set a fire, then there's no coverage. Now let's take a gun. She said a gun is, they're made to pew pew, right? Okay, so we know this. They're made to pew pew. So if that pull trigger is pulled, then there's 99% chance that it was pulled intentionally on purpose. So now it becomes an intentional act. There would be no insurance coverage. There'd be no coverage under an insurance policy. The only coverage that it would grant you would be an accident. It fell in discharge and somebody got shot, got killed. And a lot of this would probably be covered under some other insurance product, like a health product, a life product, right? But not specifically for a gun. So, I mean, it sounds great on the surface, but it doesn't make sense. And oddly enough, or sadly enough, she just doesn't realize how stupid it sounds.
Cars aren't even designed to, and we regulate the heck out of them. Licensing, registration, insurance, safety standards. Guns are literally designed to, and they've got none of that. And before someone says that punishes responsible owners, no. Just like car insurance, if you're safe, your premiums stay low and you get to keep it. If not, you pay more and it gets taken away. If we...
This lady is killing me on the left. But again, you got to understand how insurance works to get that. One thing I would point out, though, is the way she tosses that word regulate around so freely, so lightheartedly. It's just nothing to them. Regulate, regulate, regulate. They want to regulate everything. Regulate. And then they'll wonder why corporations, big businesses are running everything, right? Well, because you regulate the small guy out of the business in a lot of ways. You make it so difficult. The barriers to entry become higher and higher. The more something is regulated, the higher the barrier to entry is. So you keep regulating and raising and regulating and raising. It's going to take a conglomerate, big business, to get in there. It's something so easy as record keeping in a business. You can increase regulation and rules to the extent where it becomes very difficult for a small business to keep the level of paperwork that a big business does with their systems. It becomes more costly. Now, if you're talking about a one-person show, it shouldn't be that difficult to do that, you know. And then that opens the door for other businesses, big companies to come in, that they pull this away from these small businesses, these because their goal is that we make it easy for you. Like, what's the one with the taxes and QuickBooks and stuff like that, you know. And now you look at bookkeepers just going out of business left and right. But the point is that the more regulation you add, the more you start to move things up to the top, the power to the top, and less power is at the bottom with the people, the less choices they have. You know, what if I don't want all of this, and this on my car? What if I don't want this, that, and the other? I don't want to pay for that. I don't want this breaking. I don't want that. Well, these regulations, they just make it, because one person's comfortable with it, or a group of people are comfortable with it, or they feel safer because of it, then they force everyone else to have it, and then the cost keeps going up and up and up. But anyway, I'll leave that one.
Can regulate a RAV4, we can regulate an AR-15, gun insurance. And in a country obsessed with money, it might actually work.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what type of gun insurance she's talking about, though. Is it in case my gun gets scratched, or, you know, I drop it into some water and it sits there for a long period of time, or I lose it, or something like that? Or is she mean gun insurance wherever if I decide I want to go out and do something stupid, that I'm covered? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Peace.